Welcome to this CIO Executive Webinar, Innovating the Future of Employee Experience Through Technology, in association with CIO ASEAN and Workday. My name is Shireen Robert, editor of CIO ASEAN based in Singapore, and I'll be your host for today as we assess the importance of creating good and productive employee experiences, the role of technology in architecting business processes that lead to a thriving workforce, and the introduction of AI and machine learning into digitalization strategies. Now, according to our 2023 State of the CIO survey, improving employee experience is one of the top 5 business initiatives driving IT investments this year. With such a mandate, IT and business leaders are sourcing for new technology such that it will enable them to enable the entire organization to meaningfully connect, communicate, and collaborate. Our discussion will explore the future of employee experience with a focus on human resources and finance functions, and discover how employees are using technology to transform the way they work. To do that, we'll be getting into a 40-minute executive panel where we will examine the full value of AI investments in enhancing employee experience, how to build a skill-based workforce of the future, especially in the areas of HR and finance. And we'll look at an industry use case, as well as some best practices for creating AI-enabled employee experiences. Now, joining me to deliver these insights are an esteemed panel of experts: Damien Leach, Chief Technology Officer for Asia Pacific and Japan at Workday, and Dr. Danny Rahadro, Group Chief Information and Digital Officer at Sime Darby Berhad. Before we really get going, this is a live recorded webinar, and we will be conducting poll questions during our discussion. So for our audience, please actively participate in them. And if you would like to ask our experts on the panel any questions, please use the Q&A chat box, and we'll get to them as best as we can. All right, to kick things off, let's get a pulse of our audience with our first poll question. But before that, let me welcome our esteemed speakers, Damien and Danny. Hi, gentlemen. So good to have you join us for this webinar. So as I mentioned, we are going to have a really long discussion ahead, but before that, we do need to understand our audience a bit more. So I want to launch our first poll question. So before we even talk about AI, we need to look at whether we actually have the data required as a foundation, and really getting that right strategy in place for you to build your AI tools. So as you can see, the poll question has popped up. So we are actually really keen to know the level of cloud adoption that's actually taking place in organizations today. So for our audience, it will be really good for Danny and Damien on here to really understand, where you guys are at. So please participate in the poll. Now, while we give the audience some time to do that, Danny, I'd like to go to you. Please, could you introduce yourself to our audience for those who are unfamiliar, with Sime Darby, and maybe a bit more about your role, and perhaps in line with our discussion today, what do you think defines good employee experience?
Wow, okay, 3 questions in one. Good. Okay, thanks for having me today. Sime Darby is based a multinational company, headquartered in Malaysia. We are pretty much a trading company on automotive, industrial, and at the moment is also healthcare. We are operating in 19 countries, 24,000 employees, right? I'm currently the Group Chief Information Digital Officer. I'm based out of Singapore, but travel quite a bit in the region. In terms of user experience, in my personal kind of like humble opinion is the situation where employee would be empowered, right, to realize their fullest potential, so they can perform their jobs, their responsibility, empower by the level of the right level of technology. So they can stay productive and again, contribute to the best to the success of the company. So to me, that's a short definition of what a best user experience.
That sounds great. Damien, going to you, just a bit about yourself as well, and what do you think in your view is good employee experience?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Shireen, and pleasure to join you again, Pak Denny, on the on the panel here. Yeah, so for me, I look after the APJ region, which is Asia Pacific and Japan for Workday. The Chief Technology Officer, and I roll up into the product and technology organization. So I'm representing Workday in the region. For me, I think it really boils down to having and creating a frictionless employee experience. And by that, I mean, you know, my personal opinion is that you shouldn't really feel or see IT when you're, you know, in the organization. And by that, I mean, if you look at the onboarding experience as an example, you know, it should be, you know, a great seamless experience, meaning you get your laptop on time, you get all your ID and access permissions correctly, and everything else. I've had really bad experiences in previous, you know, work engagements, and I know how it feels to not have your PC on time when you just joined an organization, and it gives a poor perception of that organization's capability to deliver. So, you know, for me, an employee experience should be frictionless, and IT should be a seamless experience.
I'm sure all of us have been through some form of process where there was quite a bit of friction. So it's really good that we're having this discussion today in terms of how we can actually avoid situations like that. And with Danny on this panel, what is really a good case study for doing it successfully, creating that frictionless experience. So Danny, going back to you, how do you actually envision an AI-driven enterprise or workforce in a sense where, you know, your goals are reflected in your AI adoption strategy? Maybe you could share a bit about that first.
Yeah, well, I mean, my opinion, AI should be a means to the end, right? I mean, it's kind of like technology that can be used to improve, you know, real values of the company. I mean, there are a lot of potential benefits that comes with it. For example, improving, of course, user productivity, right? Maybe doing away with the repetitive, mundane tasks that otherwise would have to be performed by human, you know. And then, of course, improving, like we said, user experience, customers' experience as well. In the journey of being more customer-centric. And then, of course, if we do it right, we could go to the extent even identifying potential new revenue streams coming from this AI. Something that actually my company is currently embarking on. So a lot of potentials, but of course, at the same time, like anything else in life, there's always two sides of every coin. There are also unknown potential risks, in terms of data security, in terms of intellectual property, you know, and of course, at the moment, the technology is also still not perfect, which is still evolving. So we need to be cognizant of potential misinformation, or some people refer it as a hallucination, right? So if we can find the right balance and educating our people, I think we can gradually realizing the benefit. And this is, I think, starting point, understanding the potential risk and benefit. And of course, we need to always start with a data-driven, AI-driven kind of like culture in the company, right? And this need to be set at the very top. And then, you know, prioritizing the maybe potential projects that start small, right? And then use potentially agile framework, realizing benefit, and you know, build on top of that. But at the end of the day, whatever we do, even with AI, we need to equip our people, right? You know, so they can embrace this AI as new ways of working. They should not be intimidated with AI. That happens actually to many of us. So if we can combine these different aspects, I think that should be maybe a potential framework that we can consider.
And one thing you mentioned that I think was really key to the equation was being data-driven. And Damien, I'm going to go to the poll results. So surprisingly, about 50% say that they are 50% on cloud. That's roughly the poll. But the good thing is no one has said that they've not started their cloud journeys. Yeah, so how do you react to this kind of response where folks are kind of still 50% on their cloud journeys? And then how do you advise them to get to where they need to be in terms of being enabled by AI?
Yeah, so that's a really that's a really big question for me to answer, but I think first I want to agree with Pak Denny in the sense that when you look at your driving business value with AI and ML, which I think is really, really important. One thing is to look at the technology. The other thing is to also understand and appreciate that you're not alone in your AI journey. And it really starts with having a solid data foundation. So organizations, if you look at the reason why they deploy AI and ML, it's really four things to align with Dr. Denny's sort of point there. It's really about eliminating efficiencies, which you mentioned, Denny. And this is really about examining, data sets to surface patterns, for decision making. Then it's really about saving time. So there's a lot of organizations that, have insight that's really difficult to uncover. So things like transactional volumes and things, understanding how to make faster, better decisions and in real time can help organizations succeed. Next, it's really about looking at ways to optimize the business processes. So things like, elimination of manual tasks, looking at workloads and understanding how, you can create that frictionless end user experience for your employees. And then, I think Dr. Denny raised a really good point about risk. I think it is about managing risk, but there's two sides to risk. And that is, number one, we honestly believe AI and ML can help you manage risk, especially if you look at, financials, by looking at things like anomaly detection and understanding sort of PO invoices to payments, as an example. So, surfacing insight through AI and ML through, huge amounts of data to a human and keeping a human in the loop of the decision-making process is absolutely key. So I'm a great believer in infusing and augmenting decisions in an organization with AI and ML. I don't believe we should be automating to the point where we're removing human decisions using AI and ML, and that talks to some of the risk there, because you ultimately need to drive accountability. And as Pak Denny mentioned, sometimes AI can get it wrong, right? And we need to be cognizant of that lifecycle management process in an organization. But to touch on your first point, I think it's really about understanding, the data strategy. So defining what that data strategy is. And, ultimately we've found in our discussions, and I think this is true from our previous discussion, Denny, is, there are some barriers to successful AI and ML adoption. And you mentioned data as being key. And I totally agree. It's really about having that data foundation. And in fact, I think we saw, from a survey that we did to 1,500 business leaders, that 73% of those leaders felt pressure to increase AI adoption. But there were three things that were holding them back from achieving that. And the first one is, not unsurprisingly, having a lack of a data foundation. So poor quality data, the timeliness of access to that data is poor. Too many systems, you've got databases, tons of databases, data lakes, which eventually turn into data swamps because you can't access the data, file systems, etc. So a fragmented approach to data and a lack of a unified strategy. Also, the second thing really is around vague use cases. So the organization really needs to be very, very crystal clear in terms of their strategy towards adopting AI. And this really is fundamentally, the case. I've spoken to many leaders over the course of the last few months, and they're buying AI capabilities in without really fundamentally understanding how they're going to use the technology, What are the business use cases that they're trying to meet for their organizations? And frankly, it's a waste of money if you haven't got that clear. So having a very, very clear company strategy in relation to AI and ML is absolutely clear. And then lastly, which is the sort of barrier to to successful AI adoption, is really understanding the skills gap that you have. So creating confidence in your team's capabilities, lifting and educating the organization on your journey through that strategic use cases, as well as lifting the skills in your own IT teams, is absolutely key to successful adoption. And we've seen and experienced these challenges that I mentioned, the three data foundation, vague use cases, and a lack of clear strategy and skills gap, manifesting in barriers to adoption.
Yeah, and I think you've highlighted like really the key reasons to kind of adopt AI, but you've also raised the point about how there's a really sense of rush to AI because it's like kind of like a really interesting new thing, not really new but interesting thing, but you need to really know what you're doing with it or what your purpose is, and not just do it for the sake of doing it and like following the bandwagon in a sense. Jenny, I'm going to throw it back to you. Damien really raised a lot of those challenges, barriers, and but really good reasons to actually adopt AI. Do you face like similar situations where you're scratching your head with your team in terms of like what do we do with this and where should we do it? And then how was it like an obvious like next step for you in your digital transformation plan? And really getting to the optimal business kind of system that you had in mind?
Yeah, actually, we're talking about this AI from the technology point of view is nothing new, right? I think it has started even a long time back, 1950s, right? Only after, last November when OpenAI launched the ChatGPT, it became like more mainstream. And out of sudden, the typical end user or consumer being exposed and then believe this would be the next bandwagon that can improve their productivity and all, right? And of course, at the enterprise level, we also observe because now, the demarcation between enterprise and end user is very, very blurred, right? Our employees come to the office and expect they can use ChatGPT or Bart in the same way they're using it at home. And of course, in the enterprise setting, is going to be a slightly different story, right? Because we have governance, compliance, risk management, data security that we need to be taken care of. Yeah. So. In dealing with this kind of phenomena, I think we need to be aware. Yeah, we need to keep scanning on what's going on. From the IT perspective, I believe we need to at times be in the forefront, right? We need to understand what they are, what's the potential. We need to walk the talk, right? If the users comes to you, they expect an intelligent answer, right? They cannot tell them, sorry, I know nothing about this, let me research. You will lose your credibility, right? But of course, at the same time, you need to put things, in the right perspective, so the user would be educated in doing, the right thing in the enterprise setting. So typically, the approach that we are taking is number one is start small, as I keep repeating. Start small in the way of maybe launching proof of concept, initiative or POC. And I would like to pre-qualify POC that we normally do is a smart POC. Smart POC means typically come with a clear objective, right? What are we trying to achieve in this POC? Because I have seen again and again POC around any technologies, including AI, takes forever, right? And at the end, it's going to lead to nowhere. Yeah. Smart POC typically done within short time frame, and in my enterprise, typically I set maximum 3 months, and then clear stakeholders. So within 3 months, with a clear objective, what are we trying to validate? Yeah, what kind of hypothesis that comes before we start the POC, and what kind of like result afterwards? And then after the POC, if it turn out to be successful. And this is where the scale up would take place. And we are typically met it back with the existing business pain points, so-called like opportunities as well that could be addressed from this technology. Yeah, and as Damien mentioned, in the process, we also cannot ignore the change management aspect. Yeah, we need to bring the relevant team members. Yeah, if the technology is of the skill is still not owned internally, so we need to come up with a proper training program or even involve external resources, right? And at the same time, we also need to benchmark how others, especially in the similar industry, have been doing that. So typically, by keep doing this thing, and then you monitor the outcome, right? And then we scale the solution. Then we potentially could gradually realize the benefit from this AI. Yeah, that's typically on how kind of like we build this new technology in-house. And one more thing is we also cannot ignore the importance of building necessary governance, right? Especially data security. Making sure the relevant data will stay within our so-called like premise. Yeah, and then, but at the same time, we can leverage this relevant model from external. I think that's the balancing act that we need to have. Especially in dealing with this evolving technology like AI.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Denny, and we're also seeing, just to add, to what you're saying, we're also seeing the emergence of companies utilizing synthetic data to help with their, their modeling and their iterative approaches to, AI adoption. And I think synthetic data is a fairly low risk entry point for organizations if they're exploring, the use of AI in their organizations. Synthetic data, for those that don't know, is really sort of creating data that looks and feels like real data in your organization, be it employee data, be it financial data, be it product data, be it sales information, whatever you're trying to, resolve in terms of a use case with AI. Creating a synthetic data can really help understand the value that you're going to get by using your real data, whilst minimizing, the risk of deployment, and therefore also, and in unison, sort of saving on cost. And as you said, Denny, perhaps in certain terms, also reducing the level of governance that the organization needs to have, because after all, it's not real data. But it also, gives you the ability to start iterating, features, capabilities on that synthetic data to understand what use cases you can build. Because you might find, the initial use case that you thought, you may have 5 more during the testing process that you haven't thought of that could be a good use case. So it's a really, really good way of harnessing the approach. And I'd also agree with you in the sense that, I think it's okay to fail fast on some of these initiatives as well. And, your point about starting really small, I think is absolutely key. I've seen a lot of organizations make the mistake of thinking really big, starting really big, and then failing to deliver anything over the course of 6 months. And then it's a ton of money and resources have been wasted. And unfortunately, that's when you follow the shiny object, and I think AI is really on that huge hype cycle that we're seeing. There is a tendency for organizations to have a top-down approach where the CEO, pushes down a mandate to say, let's look at AI, let's do something. And there's a jump in the organization, and everyone sort of goes to invest in tools and services without really thinking of the business value. And for me, I think it's absolutely critical that you start small, you iterate along the way, you learn, And it's also a good way, as you said, Denny, of really sort of bringing the team up a level as well as you start to iterate through these processes. Everyone learns, everyone grows, and therefore, you can create spin-offs and perhaps a little bit of gamification in the organization by starting, 2 or 3 little projects to see, which one sort of, gains the best results. But yeah, it's a really good point that you made, Denny.
Yeah, as you both mentioned, AI is not new. It's just that AI has evolved so much over the years, and now we are in the era of Gen AI. And like with the tools you've just mentioned, Danny, ChatGPT and Bard and all that, it's something that actually the end user, the normal everyday consumer, is able to actually use and try out. And that's where there's getting more traction with it. But yeah, there's still left a lot to be said for really an enterprise use case in a way. Which is a really nice segue into our next poll question, which is, where is everybody on their ML and AI journeys? So for our audience, feel free to share, what your organization is doing, or what, if you're an IT leader, what are you actually exploring in a way? So please do that poll. And we did get a question from the audience as well, which also ties in really nicely with the current topic that we're talking about in terms of, how do you ensure responsible AI? So that's a really big topic that I think it has been asked many times. Damien, I'm going to go to you with this question in terms of what is actually an ideal approach or thought process in developing that responsible AI framework.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And it's one that we get a lot, to be honest. And I think for me, it's more than about building a responsible AI framework. For me, there are really sort of 6 guiding principles that define what I would call an AI framework. And they are really, number one, it's really about setting the vision in an organization. So, at Workday, we've embedded machine learning everywhere within the application. So we've developed it in our core, which means that we can create personalized solutions throughout our applications. And we're, using machine learning to augment people, not replace them, increasing judgment and productivity as a result. The second, guiding principle I would suggest organizations have is really following privacy principles. And when you apply that to products and services, it's really about having good data stewardship. It's about increasing, as we've mentioned before, the governance of the processes, and also using things like privacy by design and data access to build sort of AI solutions, just to make sure that they're controlled and audited all the way through the process. The third element in guiding principles is really an architectural strategy, which is really about developing, machine learning. And as I said, we've embedded that into our core. So we've taken the approach of, rather than bolting it on to our applications, we've actually developed it into our core so we can push that capability out and surface AI capabilities in all our interactions with our platform. The next, which you mentioned, the fourth area really is responsible AI. Workday is a machine learning trust program, which is set out to specifically address how we deliver machine learning and AI technologies. We've got a laser focus on ethics and customer trust, with an eye towards emerging AI regulations, because we know that they're gonna change, and it could be country specific, it could be regional specific. So our goals with this, are really to amplify the human potential, positively impact society, champion transparency and fairness, and also have a focus on privacy and protection. And I would say the fifth is really understanding, and we touched on this before, the importance of having a life cycle review process for your AI framework. So we've got a risk-based approach looking at life cycle review process, which evaluates, the machine learning products based on the susceptibility of any solution to cover bias. So the life cycle approach is really intending to include an ongoing assessment of the data, looking at ethics and bias assessments all the way through the machine learning journey and the results journey. that machine learning and AI produce. And then the last element of our kind of guiding principles, which really sort of talks to the AI framework, is having explainable AI. So this is ultimately about the transparency of the machine learning models, and how they function, how data is used, what outcomes to expect, and being able to explain those outcomes, where we can tune and test, to ensure that we can learn and improve by innovating. And this also ensures that we're creating algorithmic fairness and explainability across our approach. So for me, the guiding principles really sort of define the AI framework, and not just about responsible AI. They also include having a vision, creating privacy principles, having an architectural approach, so machine learning at the core for us, and that's our approach, a lifecycle management process, as well as embedding explainable AI from an audit and a control and fairness standpoint. Apologies, that was a bit of a long-winded answer, but
no, I fully agree with you, Damien. I mean, in principle, from an enterprise point of view, we need to understand what's going on within the machine, right? Within the AI, a concept like explainable AI. And I think I foresee, regulators, even at the country levels, are going to issue stricter regulation around AI, even compliance. Hence, we've got to treat this carefully. We understand, again, the potential benefit of this, but I think still kind of like early days around, ensuring, right, the proper usage, the proper information generated by this technology, to make sure we will not be at the wrong side of it. Yeah, I mean, if you read all the news, recent times, there have been cases where the hallucination impact of this Gen AI have been affecting a few individuals, even companies, right? So we as an enterprise need to be aware and try to mitigate as much as we can.
Yeah, and I think in addition to hallucinations, what's even worse is that some AI models can provide very, very confident incorrect answers, and that's almost even worse than hallucinations, where it's a hallucination, it's complete gibberish, it doesn't make any sense. That's fine, you can accept that. But when a model produces a very confident incorrect answer, then you start to get concerned, right? So those controls are absolutely paramount, and you're absolutely right, Denny. I think the regulations, whether we like it or not, just like GDPR and data access and data sovereignty, they're going to come in. So we've got to keep an eye on those regulations, making sure that we have that iterative process, as we talked about before, to our strategy to ensure that we can move with the regulations, no matter where the result.
Yeah, really good insights there. And whoever asked the question about responsible AI, I hope both Danny and Damien did give you a really concise answer, and really help you formulate your own AI framework. And looking at the second poll question results, overwhelmingly, as I think it's quite obvious, everyone is currently exploring some use cases. It's not really a surprise. So it's really good that the guiding principles that Damien you laid out, I hope that really helps people really focus, get some focus in terms of where they should be looking at. And of course, everyone, please feel free to hit Damien up or Dr. Danny up, get some more advice around setting up your own AI use cases. And one thing I think folks want to know as well is what some of the maybe real life examples of really good AI adoption. So Dr. Danny, do you mind sharing a bit more about what have you done in your own organization, especially when we are in an era of hybrid work? Coming out of COVID, I know everyone was remote before, but now coming out of that and doing hybrid work, how have you managed to cope with this kind of changing work model?
Yeah, well, I mean, not in my current company, but in my previous ones, we had to kind of maybe minimize the usage of manpower, right? To cover a wide area of assets. So instead of leveraging humans, so we use technology like drone to capture images, and then we process the images through machine learning, right? So not only it could save a lot of costs, a lot of time, but during COVID it was almost impossible, right, to deploy resources to remote places of the location. And so again, COVID, as we keep hearing, is the biggest contributor towards the digital transformation, right? In the last few years, so it was evident during my time as well. So we were actually quote unquote like forced to move into this faster because we had no other solution. And sometimes when you are being put under so-called like a certain level of pressure, it would bring the best of you, right? So we could prove that with the right level of machine learning, AI, we could come out with even over time a better accuracy, better precision of the model. So after COVID was over, we didn't go back to the old ways, but then we continue, implementing and fine tuning the model, because when you're talking about machine learning, AI, deep learning, in addition to data quantity, quality, time is also another factor. Because as the name implies, machine would keep learning, right? But you need to give them a time to do so. Right, so so we realized that the real value during this COVID, and in my current company, we are exploring. Actually, we started something actually very simple, and we decided to do it something internally, to mitigate all and understand all the risks. For example, like internal chatbot, right? So we are doing this smart POC as we speak in converting our policies. We have many policies, and some of them are quite lengthy, right? 100 pages. And in the past, unless you read the policies in detail, at times you cannot really find what would be relevant for your particular context. So we built Gen AI. And then the idea is in the future, people or our employees could communicate or interact with the tools as if they are talking to human, right? A human conversational kind of like a chatbot. And this a simple use case, the benefit was quite obvious. And going forward, we have identified a few key potentials. For example, you're talking about price, used car price. With this Gen AI, you can literally crawl internet, right? You can get the necessary relevant info, and then you can combine, use machine learning and give you kind of like recommendation, right, in terms of price, instead of again based on the human that we used to do in the past. Now you have more accurate real-time price that maybe set your company apart in terms of competitive advantage, right? And maybe in the future, we can even turn it around into potential, what I refer as a DRS, digital revenue stream, right? We can turn it around and make it part of the potential revenue for a company that can be extended to different part of ecosystem. So I think that's to me a few real life examples that I personally have been involved so far.
Yeah, that's a
hopefully
really... Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, hopefully you can help bring the car prices down in Singapore, Denny.
Well, there is this one variable called COE.
Yes, I don't think Denny
but
can help with that.
I like the idea, and I think one thing that I would add is we're seeing a tremendous shift in the move to a skills-based workforce. Denny mentioned the fight for talent, and I think that's absolutely real. We're looking at organizations that are using their workforce and really understanding how skills can be embedded into each of the users' profiles. So powering skills through applications is absolutely key. And machine learning is really, really great for that. We've seen the ontology, platform that we have that runs as part of, the skills-based, cloud that we have delivered, looks through around 200,000 skills. And then, organizations can tie those skills through the recruitment and onboarding process, the learning and growing process, the reward and pay process, as well as resource, analyze, forecast and benchmark. And so when you look at skills as skills-based economy, it's really a way of using machine learning to attach to skills to everyone's profiles, and really use that as part of the learning journey, understanding the skills that an organization has, also understanding the skills that an organization needs if it doesn't currently have them. A really great use case that we talk about a lot is Accenture, who effectively had 12 million skills across their entire employee base, and they were able to capture 20 skills per employee. And when they started to move to skills-based economy, they found a great deal of efficiencies in the people movement. After all, people is ultimately their product. And they were using skills to assign new users to gigs, short-term assignments. They were looking at strategic initiatives and projects that they had, and they unlocked a lot of skills that they didn't think that they had in the organization by using Skills Cloud as a way of mapping those skills to capabilities to work, and work ultimately to revenue. So it was a really huge transition that they went through as an organization, to understand both machine learning capability on the skills that they have, as well as the machine learning to surface skills that they needed in organizations, so that they can change their recruiting and talent acquisition strategies as well. So I think we're seeing machine learning being used in really sort of creative ways in organizations, not only for talent, but also in reshaping really the productivity of organizations. And that's really what we think is key. Machine learning really is the heart of the organization, to really sort of drive that more measured approach to data, to help make those very, very difficult decisions. Because you imagine, manually looking through 200,000 skills and then manually assigning those to workers. It's an incredibly difficult and challenging role, especially if you're like Accenture with over 700,000 employees. You need some automation to assist you, and machine learning's great at things like that.
These are some powerful examples of, really using technology the right way. So thank you both for sharing that. We're really down to the last few minutes that we have together. So I'm just going to launch the last poll question for our audience. It's really just to get a sense of what actually is the current state of your employer experience and how do you feel about it. So if you look on your screens, the poll question should have launched. So feel free to share your current employee experience with us. And really just do a check-in for yourself in terms of, do you feel like you have good employer experience? If no, then maybe you need to talk to Damien and Danny a bit more. So just maybe a final question to both of you is, how do you give advice to people looking to starting on their AI journeys, or starting where should they look at first when they're looking at creating good employee experiences, and as both of you mentioned this, I'm sorry, I'm adding so many questions into one, but some of you mentioned how it's typically been like a top-down approach, and sometimes the employees themselves need to fully understand the full value of the AI investment that the company has made, or the tools that they're actually using and how that has helped them. So best advice for organizations starting on AI journeys, and how can employees better extract the full value of it? Maybe Damien, I'll start with you, or Danny, maybe.
If I'm sorry, Damien or me? Okay, sorry. If I may start, like it or not, we need to start with the clear data or AI strategy, right? At the management level. They need to understand what's the vision around data, and then the structures, resource assign, and then the commitment around this, because I think this should be a prerequisite. Otherwise, that whatever we do we might, be dealing with unnecessary resistance going forward, right? Then afterwards, of course, we need to identify potential use cases and come up with a priority. I think prioritization is the key. Yeah. Otherwise, then you tend to, beat around the bush, and then you end up getting nothing. Yeah. And then as I mentioned, start small. Choose the right POC for you with a clear target, and hopefully, even from the POC, you can realize the incremental value. Yeah. And finally, make sure it's always people, process, and tools, right? Not only about the tools alone. So people is the most important component of this journey. Yeah, we need to ensure they are equipped the right skills. So reskilling, upskillings are very much required. Yeah, in terms of data and AI know-how. We need to make sure that our employees they have this growth mindset, right? They embrace this kind of like new things without again of being unnecessarily fearful or even intimidated, right? That their job will be taken away by AI, those kind of stuff. Yeah. And finally, if we keep reiterating, like Damien mentioned, I think the enterprise will find what would be the right framework or pattern that work for them. Yeah, and this would come from the value realization coming from these projects, right? And finally, is of course setting up the right governance around it. Yeah, again, talking about AI, machine learning is a data-driven kind of like exercise. So you need to ensure in terms of data quality, data governance, data team, yeah, and finally, of course, tools to ensure we can get enough quality and quantity of data that will be used for our AI and ML. I think in the nutshell, that's my kind of like a short summary of what I have been going through in terms of AI journey.
Thank you for that, Danny.
Excellent.
Damien, now to you.
Yeah. I agree with absolutely everything Danny said. It's all about building that data foundation. But I would also, probably to add, I think it's important for organizations to demystify AI and machine learning, right? As Pak Denny mentioned earlier, right? It's not new, right? It's been around for a long time. So demystify the technology. Also look at the business value and the use cases. Really try and understand what the strategic vision is of the organization. Before you start to invest in technology. And then also, one thing that I'd like to mention is understand that you're not alone, right? Organizations all over the world are struggling with this right now. I was at a CIO summit in New Zealand and also one in Melbourne, last week, and I asked the question, who, and there were, many CIOs in the audience, and I said, who in the last 3 months has developed AI policy? 80% of the people in the crowd put their hand up. So we've got to realize that everyone's going through this new technology, new approach, new policy, and creating policy in their organizations. So talk to your peers, understand what they're doing. Don't be afraid to ask for help, right? Organizations, certainly like Workday, who've been doing this for a very long time, can provide thought leadership on this. And after all, you can actually buy products that already have machine learning and AI capabilities built in them. So don't be afraid to review, buy versus build. I think that's a really important thing. You don't need to necessarily build everything from scratch if organizations that have the capability and have been doing machine learning and creating AI solutions for a very long time have got solutions there ready for you to consume. So don't be afraid to review, buy versus build. And as we said before, I think it's okay to experiment. I also think it's okay for the organization to fail fast on things if it doesn't work out, rather than sort of investing in lengthy waterfall-based projects, take an agile approach to iteration. That would be it from me.
Love the advice. So I really hope everyone has taken home some takeaways from this webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I think Damien and Jenny will be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Which brings us to the end of this webinar. So thank you all for joining us, and really participating in our polls. And thank you, Damien and Jenny, once again for being our experts on this panel and giving such great advice to our audience. And of course, special thank you to Workday for supporting this together with CIO ASEAN. With that, I'll see you all at the next webinar and have a great day ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everyone, cheers. Bye-bye.